MIRS Monday, the official podcast in the MIRS Political Newsletter. I'm Kyle Malin, joined by John Rurink, Emily Lawler, and Craig Mauger. We're going to have Scott Hagerstrom on in just a few minutes, and also Dawn Kettinger from the Michigan Nurse Association and friends. They were just out this morning, out in the front of the Capitol, and had some really well-known media folks covering them. It wasn't just the locals. It almost looks like we're preparing for war.
Did they do the duct tape?
They did do the duct tape.
Did you get a picture?
Well, I did not, because it wasn't going to appear on the podcast.
Was the duct tape at all Band-Aid themed?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it have been somehow medically integrated?
Well, I think that was the goal. Yeah. I mean, they were trying hard for that.
Good.
Yeah. I was more impressed, though, I think, with the state police presence already. I mean, we already have 6 state police officers at each entrance.
Yep, they've already blocked off Walnut Street. It's becoming an armed camp.
Yeah. And this is, if you have to go into the Capitol tomorrow, you're either going to have to get there at 7 o'clock, or you might as well just watch it from home, because it's not going to be an accessible place as it looks right now. They're preparing for a war, I think, right now, or some type of mob scene.
I was walking through the Capitol grounds on Sunday to go to church. There were no protesters there, but there were about 10 state police troopers sitting in their cars on Sunday waiting for Tuesday, I guess. So that was pretty impressive.
You know what? I forgot to say at the very beginning that intro music's new. That is Mike Calton on the harmonica and Ed McBroom on the piano. I forgot to say that at the...
It was very skillful. I mean, I don't have that much music critique in me, but it sounded very on pitch and cool, and yeah, I was impressed. I didn't know there were so many talents. These are true Renaissance men we have in the legislature these days.
Absolutely. And now the focus is going to be on them in a different way tomorrow. All the action is going to be in the House. The House could send right to work to the governor tomorrow, John. A very interesting process, I would say. I mean, to get this all the way to the governor in just 5 session days. Or 5 days and 2 session days.
It's this issue is such a passion issue, whether you like it or don't like it. You got to give credit where credit's due. The governor and the forces that were pushing this, and the chamber, the Mackinac Center, they really kind of laid the groundwork for this. And we all had political cotton in our ears last week when we didn't think it was going to happen.
Well, let's not count our chickens before they're hatched. Maybe it won't happen tomorrow. Maybe this is still just an elaborate smoke screen.
The damage, well, I don't want to say the damage has been done, but you've already caused the passion and incited the reaction. I would be shocked at this point if it didn't finish all the way.
Well, and there are other issues that are going to be talked about tomorrow. Right to work, obviously, the top on the list. But, I mean, think about the other things that are on the House floor, Craig. We've got the emergency manager law that's going to be on the House floor. We've got the regional transit that is on the House floor. Personal property tax may come up again. This could be the biggest of the House this entire session.
Yeah, that'll be interesting whether they go through all these issues tomorrow or just do right to work and get out of there, as some people have suggested. But that will be an interesting dynamic to see if they do make this one of the bigger days in a long time.
And my understanding is they don't think they're going to be able to get everything done in one day, so we are going to have to come back Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, that was the message back on Friday anyway. So the idea of we'll pass right to work and go home, I think it's going to be a little bit more complicated than that, Craig.
Yeah, I agree. They've already scheduled some committee meetings for Wednesday, so
we're going to be here for that anyway.
Yeah.
Earlier, Emily, we were looking at some of your video, and by the way, if you haven't seen Emily's video from the protest on Thursday, you got to check it out on our YouTube page. But one of the clips that didn't make it in was Scott Hagerstrom from Americans for Prosperity getting shouted down and getting showered with F-bombs. That's some awesome audio. Let's listen to that just a second.
This isn't about learning government. This is about learning your passions. It's not about listening government. It's about learning your passions.
I'm honored to get so much attention from everyone here.
Facts don't feed my family, asshole.
I was born and raised in Inkster, Michigan.
Who gives a shit where you were born?
A hard day's work for a hard day's pay.
That's what makes you hard. Hard work for less pay, motherfucker.
Move the economy forward. Move Michigan forward.
Hard work for less pay.
72% of all new jobs since the 09 recession have been created in Michigan State.
Yeah, low wage. Low wage. Penny. so you can get rich.
I don't think the demons were exorcised from Hagerstrom when I talked to him today.
I would believe it, but he had quite the... I was a little nervous for him, to be honest. Protest dynamics are always changing, and they go pretty quickly, and people definitely weren't happy with him.
Now, the exorcism comment is from a gentleman who was standing over him and shaking visually like he was some old-school Baptist minister from the South.
He was, and I could hear him. I'm not sure if you could hear him on the tape, but you could hear him asking God to get the demons out of Scott Hagerstrom. So.
Scott Hagerstrom joined us now on the podcast. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Well, great. Thank you for having me.
Very interesting protest on Thursday, and we just listened to some footage from that. We couldn't even really hear you out of all the expletives and the guy who's exorcising demons from you. That had to be a little scary.
Actually, it was a little scary, but I didn't feel afraid, so I'm not sure what to say. I was really surprised by the unions only having, a couple thousand people there, maybe 700 to 800 out on the lawn. I think they've lost their edge a little bit, but we'll see tomorrow. They've been preparing. The MEA sent out a memo asking people to cause mayhem.
Yeah,
they've been doing training camps over the weekend in Dearborn, and we'll see how many people turn out, but we hope that it stays civil conversation, and more civil than it was on Thursday. We don't need to shout, and actually I was honored that they were listening to me, because actually I have no say in this. It's up to the legislators in the Senate and the House, and all I carry a message. Americans for Prosperity carries a message, and we believe that we're right. They believe they're right, but that's why we have a civil debate, and we've certainly been on the losing end of a lot of debates over the years, but it's nice to see that maybe the wind's behind our back. We don't know for sure what will happen tomorrow, but we hope that this passes, and the governor said he would sign it, so we're very excited.
Now, on Thursday, how many folks did you bring with you to the Capitol?
Throughout the week, we've brought several hundred. There weren't as many as on Tuesday. Tuesday was really our big day. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple hundred total, but people were coming and going and milling about. So I really don't have a firm number. And a lot of our people are trying to do this through phone calls and emails. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to showing up. Now,
you guys have the steps reserved on Tuesday? Is it your group, or is it somebody else?
There's another group that that has it reserved, but we plan on having a 10 again. And we plan on putting a banner up. I think this time we're not going to be doing any speaking or any podium. So we hopefully we'll be able to set up the tent at 9 a.m. and have a safe haven for people to come and eat. And we even had some protesters that came in, and we fed them.
Is that right?
Coffee. Yes. So had some good civil discussions in the tent. So
now we saw some pushing in the video. Was there anything outside of that? Was there any other violence?
One of our activists, Bob Burt from Grand Rapids area, was punched.
Is that right?
And that was probably the most.
Punched in the face or the stomach?
In the face. Uh-huh. In the face. I'm not sure we got that on video, mm-hmm. but it's one of those things that. What are you going to do about it? I don't think it was hard enough to leave a mark, and so it is what it is, and we just hope that it remains civil.
Is it hard to bring people to Capitol on Tuesday, knowing the type of environment that you're going to be walking into?
It is, and when we're making personal phone calls, sending out emails, and we're telling people if they don't feel comfortable, we don't want them to come up. And there's different levels of comfort. If they're proud to come up and wear the AFT colors or the pro right to work or pro workplace freedom monikers, then that's great, but we certainly don't want anyone to feel like they're in a position where could be in harm's way. We hope people come out, but if they can't come out, we're asking them to call their legislators and thank all of them for letting this come up for a vote, mm-hmm. and having a civil debate in the chambers. And then secondly, if their legislator voted for it, to thank them for that vote and how important that will be for worker freedom and to move Michigan's economy forward.
Now, the steps, the reservation of those steps, that seems to be kind of a coordinated effort on your guys' part, thinking ahead. Am I wrong on that?
There's several groups that realize that this may occur, and we took turns reserving it in each of our names over the course of these 3 weeks, not knowing, actually if this was going to come up. I think there was chatter around town if Prop 2 went down, this could come up. Right. But, a lot of mixed messages and from the governor and from legislative leaders, and of course Richardville's always been opposed to right to work. He came a long ways last year with his supporting right to teach, but some of us believe maybe that was for other reasons. And then this year he said something about right to work for government employees. So he has come a long way, and we our hats off to him. We thank him for that. And so until it actually, I started to actually believe it might happen last week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and then until the votes actually took place, I was a little cynical.
Yeah, right.
Hopeful, but cynical.
You mentioned earlier that you were surprised at the number of union protesters, that it wasn't more.
Right.
But why do you think, and I was kind of surprised as well, was it because everything happened so quickly?
I don't know if the unions were lulled into a false sense of security, maybe, with behind-the-scenes negotiations with the governor. My position all along over the past 2 weeks when they're talking about negotiations with the governor, how can you negotiate with people that just threw proposals 1, 2, and 4 at you, 1, 2, and 4 at you? And that was almost laughable. And, they can make promises all day long, but then turn around and renege on those once they get this behind them. So, I was very surprised that there weren't more. So I don't know if they're just worn out from the Proposal 2 fight. I don't know if their members that are active on these issues already took all their vacation time and couldn't come up. I don't know what the reason was, but I was very surprised there weren't a lot more people there. But, they have tomorrow, and we'll see. They're estimating crowds of maybe as many as 5,000 or 7,000. The Capitol building capacity is at 2,000. So I think it'll be a very interesting day tomorrow.
The last thing I wanted to ask you, as you're talking to your members, are you encouraging them to get to the Capitol early so that they can get into the actual building and maybe get into some of the sessions and listen to the...
Yeah, obviously the Capitol building is probably going to fill up pretty quickly, and if people are interested, they are going to have to come very, very early. I'm not sure. I need to check today. That's on my agenda. If the doors open at 8? 7. 7. Okay. Well, so... what we experienced last week, when I believe it was Wednesday when I was in the Capitol building, even to get in the gallery, there was a line. Yeah. So, and even if you get there at 7 a.m. and they don't start session at 10 and they take attendance, if you leave that, you're going to have to stand back in line to get in, and people get hungry, they have to use the bathroom, so it'll be very... So I'm not sure, it'd be great if people can come early and sit there for 4 hours, but I'm not sure how realistic that is.
Yeah, right.
And we can watch on TV now, thanks to MJTV.
Oh, you can do that too, but you can't heckle the House member. You're not supposed to anyway.
We would encourage our members to be respectful, not engage anybody, not to heckle anybody, and...
You're not even supposed to applaud.
Well... then we would encourage them not to applaud either.
All right. All right, very good. Hey, thanks for the time today, Scott. I appreciate it. Scott Hagerstrom from Americans for Prosperity.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Also this morning, I'd mentioned that the Michigan Nurse Association was out in front of the Capitol protesting with Band-Aids on their mouths to represent the silencing of nurses and unions if right to work is passed. I talked with Dawn Kettinger from the Michigan Nurse Association and some of the folks who were protesting with her. Okay, joining us now, Dawn Kettinger with Michigan Nurses Association. You brought some other fine folks with you. Just finished up a rally out here on the Capitol steps. A lot of media are coming to these things. We got CNN set up. Their live truck is over there in the media parking, so I guess I'm not getting that spot tomorrow.
You're on your own for that, Kyle.
Good thing I ride my bike.
Yeah, well, you might be able to get through some spaces the others of us can't. But yeah, we've had a tremendous interest literally from all over the world. I mean, we've talked to CNN, New York Times, Al Jazeera was here this morning at our press conference. People all around the world, this resonates with them, that people, workers, working families, the faith community, everybody is standing up to say, we're not going to take this corporate takeover of our state. It's wrong. We're going to speak out, and let's make it happen.
Who wants to talk about why this is drawing the type of attention that it is? Katie Oppenheim?
I think that this is a history. I put that in quotes because sometimes history can be sad. This is history in a state that has always been supportive of workers. And as nurses, we see every day what happens when working people don't have what they need. So as nurses, we're here, and we'll have nurses from other states as well coming in to say that if right to work is signed by the governor, then it will be harder for us to take care of our patients, harder for us to have the shifts, rest between shifts, harder for us to have the safety equipment, the staffing that we need in order for us to protect our patients. And the corporatization of healthcare is evident throughout this country. Media knows that. It's obvious everywhere. People talk about it in the news all the time. And we know that if right to work passes, that will just explode the corporatization of healthcare and the profits.
Now, you had mentioned the out-of-state nurses who are going to be coming here, and we are going to have folks from other states and other unions going to be joining us at the Capitol. Does that hurt the message at all that these aren't Michigan people? Why would they care?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I can speak to that. I'm
Okay.
Jeff Breslin. I'm a registered nurse. It is no different than when things were going on in other places of the country where there is an attack on workers and an attack on our ability to have a say how we take care of patients. I ended up in Wisconsin. I ended up in New York where things very similar to this were going on in a show of support for the people that happen to be there. And the people that are coming from out of state are coming here to support us during this time.
The other thing that I hear is you can bring all the people here you want, but it isn't going to change a single mind in there. Does anyone want to address that?
You know, whether it changes the minds of what happens tomorrow, this is the beginning of a movement of workers, families, union workers, non-union workers, everyone who's been watching the Snyder administration destroy the middle class, take money away from our schools, give tax breaks to corporations while, taxing our seniors. This is a movement. We had a protest today. We have actions tomorrow. We're taking it back to the districts all the way through 2014, where we will be holding people accountable for what they've done. So tomorrow, we will be here standing up and fighting for democracy, the democracy that didn't happen when we got locked out of the Capitol on Thursday. This is our house. We'll be here raising our voices, and that's important no matter what's going on.
Now, talking about tomorrow, they're only going to let 2,000 people into the building. Is that fair, not fair? I mean, how are you guys addressing that?
It's very suspicious to me for that random number. I think many of us who've been around the Capitol can imagine that the Capitol can take more people than that. So we, I think, are already seeing the beginning, the foundation of shutting people out of the people's house. But our main goal is to be here to peacefully interact with all the workers, all the faith community, everyone who's coming from all over, to have a day of action. And, that involves being in the people's house. So we will be trying to get into the people's house in a peaceful way, and it'll be very disappointing if the governor uses the state police to to tear us apart.
Now, do you think it's Snyder using the state police, or are they just trying to protect the public inside?
I think it is Governor Snyder and the right-wing politicians that are using the state police to try to create an image of the people, of us, who are trying to stand up for our rights and stand up for democracy, trying to make us out to be thugs, trying to make us out to be people that are asking for things that are unreasonable. As we ended up seeing on Thursday, they ended up coming in, they introduced a bill that they knew was going to be very controversial. They were not talking to any constituents. They were not giving it any time to be heard by the public, to be commented on. They just pushed things through in a extremely rapid time. Within 7 hours from introduction, they had signatures on the bills that were going through.
Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you, how do you contain the crowd? And not just the nurses here, but all the other unions. I was speaking with Scott Hagerstrom earlier. He said somebody threw a punch at one of his supporters, connected in the face. How do you get your people? Obviously, passions are going to be high, but how do you get them to, keep the violence down?
We want zero violence tomorrow, Kyle. And so we've had trainings in civil disobedience. We've been actively talking about, during an emotional time with so many people, how do we all work together to stay calm? If someone's trying to start trouble, how do we de-escalate that? We want Michigan to look great on the national and international stage tomorrow when we are raising our voices for democracy.
Because unfortunately what can happen, I suppose, you have people rush the Senate, you have some kind of violence, that dominates maybe the news coverage when that's not really what you want the story to be.
Exactly, and not just what the story will be, but that's not what we're about in Michigan, and that's not how we get things done. So we are, we're trying to have everybody prepared to do whatever we need to do to be here peacefully, no matter what happens. If they will only let 2,000 people in the Capitol and those legislators go ahead and do the wrong thing anyway, we will be out here on the outside telling the world what is going on, and this is changing Michigan. Michigan will be different. Workers and people care about workers, faith community. We're not going to stand quietly anymore. We tried to be listened in lots of other ways. It didn't work. We will be sure to be listened to now.
One last thing I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, you've got the outward visual of the media, or of the protests and so forth. Are you guys still working on some House members to try and sway the minds of 3 Republicans to get them to flop their vote? Or have you abandoned ship on that one?
We and all constituents are trying to continue to have dialogue with legislators, and if Governor Snyder is still willing to listen, to say, look at the truth of what's happening, listen to the truth of what right to work is, don't give in to Tea Party threats, do what's right. So yeah, we are still trying to have that dialogue and hope that people will rise to the occasion. If they don't, then we will continue to speak out regardless, but people still have a chance to reevaluate those votes they made and really listen for a first time to the people and not the corporations and Dick DeVos's who are trying to buy their votes.
All right. Thank you, Don Kettinger with the Nurse Association, Jeff Breslin, and Katie Alpenheim. I appreciate the time today.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
We're going to close today's podcast with a couple of audio clips from Thursday's vote. Senator Randy Richardville, after 2 right-to-work bills passed his chamber, was not necessarily in a strong talking mood. I was able to catch him as he was leaving the chambers and going to his vehicle, which was quite well protected, I'll say, by the police. This is what he had to say after the vote. Can you talk about how tough this was? A tough vote for you, seeing your union roots?
Yeah, of course it's a tough vote. Anytime you take on something that's emotional, it's tough. What it came down for me was individual choice of workers. And I believe they should have that choice, just like I did with seat belts, just like I have with motorcycle helmets, just like I have with owners, and whether they're smoking in their restaurants. I've been consistent. I'm still a very strong advocate that most unions provide a really good return on that investment. So I'm also open. We didn't ask for immediate effect.
Right.
Did that on purpose.
Right.
Because I still think there's an opportunity to talk about other things that the labor workforce has concerns. So I hope that the dialogue stays open. So that's my intent, anyways.
How much of an impact did Dick DeVos and other members of the business community have on getting this thing passed?
Very little.
On your members. And they were calling your members, though, umbrella.
Yeah, they were. I know. And by the time they were done, I still had a large number of members that were undecided. And I've got a whip who knows how to count really well. By the time it was all said and done, we had the right number. But in the midst, it wasn't. So, is that good?
And then finally, one senator who was very accessible after the vote, Arlen Meekoff, Senate Majority Floor Leader, whose legislation was Senate Bill 116, talked with folks about right to work. I had a specific question I wanted to ask him, and didn't necessarily want to go there. Let's listen to this exchange.
Hey, Connor.
I got to
Hello there. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Just fine. Good. So, did you get a call from Scott Walker?
Why would you ask me that?
I heard a little birdie tell me that he called.
I'm going to be over here.
Okay. What else you got?
Did you get a call from the Florida governor?
No.
Mr. Scott?
Nope.
Okay. You don't want to. Why don't you want to answer the Walker question? It's a good story.
What do you want to know? Who calls my cell phone?
Well, that's significant, though. Scott Walker is a significant person in this, collective bargaining, public workers.
Well, he is significant. for Wisconsin. I think what we did here is significant for Michigan.
Well,
he doesn't have any influence, and there was nothing starting up from him to get anything done here in Michigan.
Right.
We did what we did because we believe in.
But even if he gives you an attaboy, I mean, that's kind of cool. Wouldn't you think?
If he would have given me an attaboy, that would be cool, yeah.
Okay. Are you saying he didn't?
He did not.
Okay. Did he call you, though?
Why do you ask me that?
Because it's interesting.
Not interesting enough.
Okay. Can you talk about the influence that your caucus members faced from folks in business, the business sector, Dick DeVos, Ron Weiser, them calling, those individuals calling the senators, urging a yes vote on right to work today?
I think you have seen that probably on both sides of the issue. Folks that were passionate in the way they expressed their opinions were getting phone calls from folks that are other-minded. And I think that, I don't know if that was equal pressure, I don't know how to measure that, but I think people who are passionate about this issue will make sure they contact their elected officials, whether they agree or disagree.
And that's going to do it for this week's edition of MIRS Monday. Thanks to the Michigan Press Association for distributing our podcast, John, Emily, and Craig. And also the big shout-out this week, the Michigan Catholic Conference. Coming up big with some food on Monday and Tuesday. That took care of us for 2 days, John.
Yeah, it did. It was very nice of them to do.
That was.
They didn't need to do that. That was very nice.
Yeah, they didn't need to do that, but it just shows you food comes and shout-outs follow. And we're gonna. Hey, it's always good. It's this shout-out. That's innocent. That's yeah. All right, until next week. It could be worse. We could have other things being thrown at us.
I think the unions in Wisconsin are sending the unions here pizzas for when they're protesting. Maybe the reporters in Wisconsin should send us some pizzas.
Yeah, there you go. Then they get a shout out next week. Yeah, exactly. We can get a special delivery here at MIRS World Headquarters. We'll find out, and we'll let you know next week if that happened or not. Until then, I'm Kyle Malin. Take care. Ooh.